What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to talk about why we're going to be looking for some big data to come out for tomorrow and how it may affect the market moving forward. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Webull link. If you deposit any amounts of money into the account, you are guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500 or more, you're guaranteed 20. Deposit $2,000 more and you're guaranteed 40. The offer ends very soon, in just about 2 weeks from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. Looking at SPY so far, we are continuing to uptrend very, very nicely. We have a tough resistance at this 604 area, so we'll have to see if we could break that or not. But nonetheless, we remain bullish looking at the way the charts are moving. We're holding very nicely above our 20 EMA, and there's a lot more potential for this to continue as time goes on. So I'll talk more about this over the next couple of minutes, but let's first talk about some data. So just wanted to say that for today, we had a very interesting day. We saw tech trying to make a comeback. We saw Apple pushing alongside Nvidia, Microsoft, and lots of the Magnificent Seven. However, finance was very weak as we saw Berkshire Hathaway, JP Morgan, and many others slow down. Besides that, the rest of the market was quite mixed. But overall, I would say the market still did a good job at holding up as we saw lots of ETFs remain in the green. Now, for other factors out there, just know that tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. There's not really a whole lot that's coming out. At 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the JOLTS job openings and job quits reports. And that's pretty much it. Nothing too significant or nothing too crazy will be coming out besides that. But the jobs numbers are very important to understand the scope of the economy and understand what the Fed has to be doing moving forward. That's why we have to watch for some volatility tomorrow at 10 a.m. That's the big data that's coming out, the jobs numbers. So get ready for some volatility at that time. Now, I also want to mention that as far as the market goes, we don't really have any significant earnings coming out for today. But for tomorrow, we have a couple of banks announcing earnings, not to mention Salesforce and a few more. On Wednesday, we have Chewy, Foot Locker, Dollar Tree, and a few others like that, followed by Dollar General, TD Bank, and more retail coming out for Thursday. But that's it for earnings. Very quiet week, if anything. Going into the overall sentiment for the market, the fear and greed index is currently at greed. That's making up the majority of sentiment. Momentum is also extremely greedy as the market pushes to new all-time highs. There's no sign of rejection yet, and so far the bulls have the edge. The put to call option ratio on the 5-day average basis is continuing to drop because we're continuing to see more of these puts being closed and calls being bought back up. The VIX is also continuing to dump. There's no sign of this bouncing yet, although it's getting closer to some key supports. As of right now, it remains more bearish, which tends to be more bullish for the market. So what do we see for the market moving forward? What is my view, at least thus far? The answer is right now we are looking more and more bullish. And I say that because of how we're continuing this uptrend. So as far as SPY goes, we're pushing and pushing and pushing very nicely, and we're riding above our EMAs very well. However, I do want to call out that at 604, there's a tough resistance right over here. To break that, that would take us all the way up to about that 605 resistance, followed by 607.5. But I just want to say that it's a very, very tough resistance for SPY, and it's not that easy to break through that. So make sure you watch that for tomorrow, the 604 area. If that breaks, we continue to push for 605 plus. However, if the market cannot break 604, if we reject off 604, we're looking for this imbalance down here at 602.4 as the main support, very close to 602.5. If we retest that, we have to bounce off that. Otherwise, we're at risk of coming back down to about the 600 area, very close to where our 20 EMA is going to be. And I do think this might kind of curl like right over here in the low 600s. So 600 is going to be the main support at the 20 EMA. If that fails us, make sure you watch these levels very, very closely. In my personal opinion, I think the chart does look bullish. But just like how we did today, we got this little dip today only to get bought back up. We could dip tomorrow, and we'll have to see if we get a bounce or not. So I think we might retest the 602s, looking at how tough the 604 resistance is. But the chart remains bullish despite that. As of right now, every time we dip, we got bought back up. We dipped, got bought back up 3 days in a row. So this does favor that it might dip and then get bought back up unless we end up losing the 602.4 area. So those are going to be your very, very key levels. Break 604 and we're bullish. We're looking for 605 as our targets. Just know SPY is very choppy up here. And if we get a rejection here, we're looking for 602, this imbalance down here, which is going to be acting as a magnet. 602.4. We have to bounce off that. Otherwise, we come all the way down closer to 600. I favor a little bit of a dip, and then we could bounce, but that all depends on the jobs numbers that come out tomorrow at 10 a.m. And unfortunately, I'm not really a fortune teller, so I can't make any promises about this. The chart is bullish overall, so if we do get a dip, the odds do favor is trying to bounce and continuing to go higher. But look for a small dip tomorrow morning, then we'll see what kind of reaction we get. As far as ES goes, I think we might see the same thing. So ES is pushing very well, but there's a slight bearish divergence developing here, which might drag this down just a little bit. We have an imbalance down to about 6,050, so there might be a small dip to that, if not 6,040 in that range. So there's a small dip. We could try to bounce off that and then continue to push as time goes on. Right now, we're expecting, or we're basically respecting a very, very nice uptrend. I think the market is bullish as we're making higher highs and higher lows. Now, it's possible we get a small dip back down to 6,050 or below, but then we'll have to see if we get a bounce off that or not later on. But overall, we're testing this resistance and we're doing a very, very good job so far. I think that despite the fact that there is a bearish divergence, there is a tough resistance that could lead to a little bit of a dip. But then even if we get that dip, we tend to get bought back up. So every time we dipped, we got bought back up. We dipped and got bought back up. As long as we don't lose 6,037, we're going to likely continue to get bought back up. So we might dip a little bit tomorrow morning back down to this imbalance towards 6,050, if not 6,040. Then we could be looking for a very nice bounce after that as the most likely possibility. As far as Nvidia goes, it looks nice, but we are kind of stuck in this range. We have two supports, 138 and 136. We have resistance at 140. We're stuck going back and forth in this range. Now, it is looking like it might dip back down towards the 137.5, if not the 136s tomorrow, before getting bought back up. But I think that we're just going to continue to shuffle between 136 and 140 for the time being until we break one of these levels. As long as we get and a hold above 138 by close tomorrow, this still has potential to break up for 142 later on. There's a nice inverse head and shoulders forming. If we do get the dip, we could consolidate like this and start pushing later on. So I still see upside potential in this nonetheless. I think the setup looks nice for Nvidia, but as of right now, unfortunately, we're just stuck between these EMAs. It's been like this for the past 3 days, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So we're going to most likely just be range bound for now. Unfortunately, that's what the chart tells us. We'll just have to wait and see which way we break, but it's just range bound. Bitcoin is showing a little bit of weakness. Now, ever since we hit the 100,000 mark, it's been on a bit of a downtrend here. There's a possible slanted inverse head and shoulders, but we weren't really able to get back up above 100,000 since that's a very, very tough resistance. Now, today what happened was we got this dip, we got bought back up, then we dipped back down, so it wasn't able to hold above 96,400. If we hold above 96,400, we're looking for essentially 97,000 as our target. If we reject, we're looking for essentially 94,600. I presume that we're going to continue to dip right over here. I think the odds favor 94,400 is our target, and we'll have to see if we get a bounce off that or not. But I think that this might be dipping to 95,000 and 94,400 is our two potential supports, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. But I favor downside a little bit more for the lower 95,000 area, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not. I do want to call out a possible head and shoulders here on Bitcoin, which could lead to some more downside. So watch and see what the reaction is. I favor downside a little bit more for Bitcoin for 94,400. We'll see if we get bought back up from there. As of right now, when we hit the 94,000s, we get bought back up and we like to reject off 97,000. This is our range on Bitcoin, but we do look a little bearish from here, so we might see a small dip. For Tesla, we look very, very nice. I do want to call out that there's a possible cup and handle-like structure that's developing. We do have a gap to fill all the way down here around 345. So in my opinion, I think that Tesla's range bound. We like to get bought back up around 350 and we tend to reject very close to 360. So I think we remain range bound. There is a possibility it comes down to fill the gap and then it bounces. But don't forget the cup and handle is still valid and suggests that there could be a big breakout coming soon. But we need to see Tesla break past 360 to get it. I think Tesla may need a catalyst to get that. So we'll be waiting to see. Otherwise, for now, Tesla's shuffling between 350 and 360. Tomorrow, there might be a dip to about the 350 area. We'll see if we come down to fill the gap down to like 345 or not. But then even if we do dip to 350, if not 345, we should get bought back up to about the 358 area and just continue to be range bound for now. For the most part, I just see range bound price action for Tesla. Now, if we get that break above 360, if we get some kind of big piece of news, this will be very bullish off this cup and handle, but there's no sign yet of that breakout. So we just have to be very patient for now and watch the range on Tesla. For NQ, we pumped very nicely, but there is one issue. There's a very tough resistance around 21,215. If that continues to break, our next target is around 21,250. If we don't hold above that, we're looking for this to come back down to about 21,100. 21,150 to correct myself, for a small dip. So we do get that small dip. We'll see if we get a bounce afterwards, but there might be a little dip on NQ here as it's a very, very tough resistance. Now, bringing us to the QQQ, here's the thing about the QQQ. We did a great job. We pumped very, very well thanks to Nvidia and many other stocks out there. But the problem is there's a very, very tough resistance at 516. It's a very, very tough resistance up here. We were not able to just break through this, and it was not easy whatsoever. So from the way I see things, when you look at the 4-hour, it's a tough resistance. The dailies also had some tough resistance as well. So we'll have to see if we could break that or not to remain bullish. Be careful, guys, because when you look at the 4-hour, the last time we hit 516, the QQQ got a big rejection. So you want to be careful at this resistance. So tomorrow is very simple. Look for a test of 516. If we break that, we could easily go up to 517.5, then eventually 520. If not, there might be a small dip coming to where the breakout happens to be around the 512.5 area. So look for a test of 516. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially 517.5 plus. If we don't hold above 516, there could be a dip coming back down to 512.5. Now, why am I so ambiguous? The answer is it depends on this data, by the way. Like I said before, guys, I don't know what the jobs numbers are going to look like tomorrow at 10 a.m. That's why I'm very double-minded, but I am a little bit concerned about this resistance. It's very tough. Let's see if the QQQ could get back above 516. If we do, we're going to be bullish. If not, if we can't hold above 516, there's going to likely be a dip coming back down to 512.5. My gut is telling me this is going to dip a little bit, just a tiny little dip, maybe by like 1 or 2 points. And then we'll see if we get a bounce off of that, because even if we do get these dips, we love to get bought back up. For example, right here, we dipped to 494, got bought back up. We dipped and bounced, dipped and bounced, dipped and bounced every single time. So even if we do get a small dip, we could still bounce later on, remain bullish, but this is just a very temporary move because of the resistance we're testing. So on the QQQ, the most likely possibility seems to be that like we get a dip here to about this 512.5 to 512.8 area. And then we could try to bounce off of that because we still remain more bullish. We'll see if we get the bounce. This all depends on the data, so we'll have to see how it goes. As far as Apple goes, we have a very tough resistance at the 240 area. If we hold above that, just like the QQQ, it's a tough resistance. If we hold above that, we're looking for 242. If this rejects, we're looking for a move back down for 238. I think that 240 is going to be tough, so we might dip a little bit to 238 before it tries to bounce again. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. That's the most likely possibility I'm thinking about. But overall, we remain more bullish. We're on a very, very strong uptrend. Even if we do get a small dip, we could try to bounce, and Apple remains bullish nonetheless. So just keep that in mind, guys, and heed my warning. That's what I'm essentially seeing on the charts. For other factors out there, I wanted to call out Netflix. Netflix is on a very, very nice double bottom like structure, trying to push higher. We have resistance at 900. If it ends up losing essentially 9 or 890, we're looking for a move back down to 884. If we break 900, we're looking for new highs to about the 920 area. So the issue with Netflix is that this is a tough resistance we're going to be testing tomorrow. I think we push a bit for like 905. Last time we hit that, we did get a triple top rejection. So watch this resistance. Netflix may push a little bit more, but we'll have to see if we get a rejection not from there. So give this some time. For MSTR, unfortunately, we're not doing the best of jobs at holding above our resistance. I want to see it hold above 391 to start pushing for 420. It came just short of 400 today, only to reject. So it's not the best of signs. You know, if anything, instead of this being like a nice inverse head and shoulders rejection, we're actually making lower highs here, so it's not looking that great. And it looks like it's in a range right now. We still haven't fully filled this gap down to the 360s, so we need to get back above 391. If not, we're looking at the main support at 380. Got to hold 380. If we don't, I think this dips down to 360, unfortunately. And there is a risk of downside looking at how weak this chart is looking compared to the market. Celsius pumped. I was hoping that this would pump past 30. We actually came short. We pumped only to dump back down because of some negative news. So from the way I see things, CELH or Celsius is on a bit of a downtrend. We had a high here rejected, high here rejected, high here rejected, high here rejected over and over again. So I think that tomorrow we retest 28.5. We need to bounce off that. Otherwise, we dip all the way down towards 27.75. There's going to be a risk of us dipping all the way down there unless we get that bounce. So just keep that in mind. For Supermicro, we're on a very, very strong uptrend here trying to break out. I think there's a good chance we continue this push. If we end up losing 40, we're looking for essentially 37 as our main support. There's 38 to 37, that range. For now, we look bullish. So as long as we don't lose 40, we are going to continue to uptrend back up towards this high right here at 44.8, followed by about 48 as our next potential target. So Supermicro looks very bullish right now. It's breaking out, doing a great job. And this is still looking like it's favoring the higher 40s. For Palantir, we're just range bound right now. This is unfortunate because I saw potential in this, but the issue is that we're not really breaking resistance. We have tough resistance near 68, and our main support's at 64.6. We've been going back and forth for now. So look at 65.74 as our main support, and we'll have to see how it goes from here. My gut tells me this is just going to be range bound for now. We might be dipping for 65.74. We'll see if we get a bounce or not off that. Otherwise, we could be dipping lower. So I see us just trading sideways for the time being. For Rivian, we have a very, very nice looking structure going back and forth and back and forth. There is a risk of us losing 11.76 to tip down to about 11.23 if that ends up failing. And we did call out downside on Rivian yesterday. So I do think that this chart might pop a bit and possibly start tipping down to about 11.23 before it tries to bounce again. But the double top like structure is favoring downside. For SoFi, we're on a bit of a dip right here. We're looking for essentially 15.87 is the main support. If that fails us, we dip all the way down to about the 15.5 area. If this holds, we attempt to rebound for essentially 16. So I think that because we're holding our 20 EMA very nicely, this does favor a bit of a bounce if we hold 15.87. So we have a big test coming for SoFi tomorrow. We've got to hold our key support. Otherwise, this is going to be at risk of dipping even more. So just keep that in mind, guys. We need to hold 15.87 on SoFi to get that rebound. Otherwise, this will favor the downside. For the IWM, we have essentially 240 is our main support, and 244 is the main resistance. We've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for the time being. Because we held our support here, this does favor a little bit of a push back up to about 244 tomorrow, followed by a move back down with lots of sideways price action. Unfortunately, we're just completely range bound, so I can't really say much about this as we're just waiting to see the news charts develop. For AMD, we look more bullish because of the fact that we got some bullish news. I think that there's a very, very good chance that this could push higher if we break this resistance around 143. If that's the case, we're looking for 145. If we reject, we're looking for 138 as the main support. As of right now, I do anticipate a little bit of a dip to about 140 before it tries to break out higher. And we could be looking for an attempt to get back up to 146 off this bullish divergence. Look for a dip and a bounce up to about 145 to 146 as the most likely possibility. Same thing with ARM. Now, the issue with ARM is that we're struggling to hold above our 200 EMA at 139.88. We could dip a little bit because of that to about 138 before it tries to bounce again. But overall, this is bullish. We had a low here, came up, made a higher high, higher low. We could be making a higher high soon. Look for a small dip to 138 before it attempts to break out. That's the most likely case that I'm going to be looking for. Coin is completely range bound between the resistance at 315 and the main support around that 290 area, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. We could test 297 before it tries to bounce back up, but otherwise, I just think we're going to be trading sideways, not really doing a whole lot. For Amazon, we look more bullish. It's a very, very strong uptrend here. We could dip a little bit back down. We'll have to see if we could hold above 212 or not. Otherwise, this is going to be at risk of coming back down towards 208.75. So I think we might be dipping to 208.75 before we try to bounce, and then we'll have to see how things end up going from here. But overall, guys, there is a nice potential uptrend that could be established to form a cup. We might dip a little bit first to retest the breakout for 208.75 on Amazon before it tries to bounce. So just keep that in mind. Same thing with Meta. We have tough resistance at 595. I do think we will eventually get up to 600. But we might dip first before it tries to break out for 600. It could be a dip coming right over here, back to the breakout area around 588 to 590. Look for a small dip by about 2 to 4 points before this thing attempts to bounce and starts pushing back up to those highs. For Microsoft, same thing. It might try to test a breakout around 427.75. I think there's a good chance we end up testing that before it tries to bounce, so keep that in mind. Same thing with Google. I think Google will ultimately try to uptrend for 175, but it might retest 172.5 to 171.38 before it tries to bounce. Look for a small dip and a bounce as the most likely possibilities. For a couple more, for GameStop, I got this rejection. We were talking about how we wanted this to hold above 30. Otherwise, this is going to return back down. And I think that this could be on its way down to this low here at 25.8 before it tries to bounce. AMC is looking more bullish compared to GameStop, but it might retest 4.89 before it tries to bounce again. DJT is looking a little bit more bullish. We need to try to hold above 30.97. If that's the case, we're looking for essentially 33. The VIX is looking more bearish. It's continuing to fall. There's no sign of a bounce as the market remains bullish. However, the VIX is approaching some supports. We're getting closer to that main support around the 12 area. So the closer we get to 13 flat, the closer it is to potentially bouncing. So we'll have to give it some time, but there's no sign yet. Same thing with the 10-year. There's no sign of a bounce, a very strong bounce yet. The dollar is trying to rebound here. So could this be a sign the market's going to dip a bit? We'll have to see about that. So my view of the market's very simple. We're at some tough resistance. There could be a little dip here, but then overall, even if we do get a small dip, if you guys look at the last couple of days, every time the market's dipped, we're just getting bought back up. So if there's a small dip, we might just get bought back up and continue to rally as the bulls are stepping in. As of right now, that is what the trend is looking like at the time I'm recording this video, as the buyers are continuing to develop. The market has stronger buyers than bears, and right now the buyers have the edge. Thank you all so much for listening. There could be a small dip coming before the market gets more upside later on, so keep that in mind. I wish the best for everyone. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a good day, night, or evening. I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow before market open. Thanks again, and peace out.